Hello and welcome back to Afterglow. We are now on episode 57. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about Sim City for the Super Nintendo. I really enjoyed this game quite a lot as a kid and still do, but honestly, I'd never played anything like it up to this point. Like, back when this game came out for the Super, it had been out on a lot of PCs. I think it started out as a Mac game, I can't fully remember. But I never saw any of that. The first time I had seen it was in some coverage in Nintendo Power, and it looked pretty cool. So I wanted to go check it out, and yeah, it was a very fun game. So we're gonna go into all of that after our music break. Welcome back. So, like I had said in the intro, the first time I had seen this game was in Nintendo Power coverage, and I remember thinking, it looks kind of cool. Didn't think much else of it. But I eventually rented it at the rental store, and I got totally addicted to it. And I'm thankful that I played the Super Nintendo version before any, because I'll be honest, if I had played the PC version, I don't think I would have gotten into it the same way, because that level of Nintendo polish on this version is amazing. Now, it is a bit easier than the PC version, but you've got this, I can't think of his name, it's a green-haired guy, but he'll always come in and pop up with some hints. Sometimes he will annoy you greatly. But definitely helped smooth things over in a way. Not to mention, they did a great job figuring out how to convert mouse controlled gameplay over to a controller gameplay. You've got a button that you can hold down to scroll the map real fast. You've got another button that'll bring down your HUD, which will bring up everything that you can purchase. Also brings up a menu to where you can load, save, change your game speed, all that good stuff. So the game breaks down, there's 3 different zones: residential, commercial, and industrial. And in those 3 zones is like the core games, but there's also a bunch of special items that you can build: airports and seaports, police stations, fire departments, all that good stuff. Now, later versions of the game, you had to worry about like running water lines. You had to worry about sewage. Thankfully, the only thing you really have to worry about in this game is electrical. You run electrical lines, you're good to go. But the simplification of it is what got me addicted to the game for the most part. Like I said, I feel like if I would have jumped in SimCity 2000, I would have been over my head. Thankfully, this game's not too bad. It does have some glitches, like a huge glitch, in my opinion at least, is that the game really wants you to run trains everywhere instead of roads everywhere. If you run roads everywhere, you have major pollution problems down the line that can be pretty well eliminated by using railways everywhere, which is not realistic in any kind of city setting, but hey. I definitely remember though. I would cheese the game so much. Like there's a bunch of challenges that you can play, and this will not work if you're in a challenge mode. So a lot of those are timed. But if you're just building a city and you don't have to worry about the timer, you can just set the game in the fastest speed, let it run, and as long as you're making a profit at the end of the year and not losing money, you can just let the game go, come back to it, and just build like mad to your heart's content. Because the one thing about this game that did annoy me to a bit is that you would build your areas up, and you'd sit there and you'd wait, and you'd wait, and the in-game year would go by, and you would maybe profit like $250, which is enough to place like 2 zones, and then you'd have to wait more. And it just moved at a snail's pace, even at the fastest speed. And I get that there's the tactical aspect of it. You have to build everything properly and then manage your money properly. But to me, it always went really slow. Although I'm not the best at this game. The highest level I can get is Metropolis, and there's a level beyond that called Megaopolis. I've never gotten Megaopolis. But it was fun. So many times I would rent this game, and unfortunately, I would have to, completely start over because it's a rental. So while it did have save data back then, I would only save, I believe, 2 cities at a time. Of course, my save would be gone if I would re-rent the game even a week later. So I would rent it and I would build, and then I would go find something else to do. Read a book, go watch TV, whatever. Come back to it, and hopefully have enough money to continue building my city, only for me to save down the road and lose it. Now, I know you guys know the story about how I got a large chunk of my NES games through that same game rental store whenever they offloaded all their NES games and upgraded to like Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. If you've listened to the show for a while, you know I don't really bring up buying Super Nintendo games and Sega Genesis games that way. And the reason why is because this rental store never got rid of their Super Nintendo and Sega games in the same way that they did their NES games. I don't know whether they just sold them outright somewhere else or what happened, but it never happened. So I never actually managed to get my own copy of SimCity till years later whenever I started collecting games. And it's really a shame. I did emulate it. It's definitely one of the games I originally sought out to emulate. And it worked out pretty good, although it was kind of weird in a way playing a console version of a PC game on a PC instead of just playing the original PC version. But I did go and track down the original SimCity back then. And I still preferred the Super Nintendo version. It just looked better. It was more polished. I loved the little guy that would come in and give you tips and everything. Uh, I love the fact that it had like the Nintendo theming in a way. A great example is that you can have a lizard come and attack your city at some point, and you have to try to recover and rebuild. And the lizard in the Super Nintendo version is, of course, Bowser of Super Mario Bros. Fame. And to this day, I wish that Nintendo and EA could somehow work together to come up with another Nintendo-ized version of SimCity, because I know this might be sacrilegious to some of you guys listening out there, but I'm not the biggest fan of SimCity 2000, 3000, SimCity 4. I own them all, played them all, and I keep coming back to the Super Nintendo version. I don't know, it's just because it's at my level, and I'm not as good building and designing cities as many people are. I guarantee that's part of it. But I just prefer that Super Nintendo SimCity. I've even tried other games like Cities XL, and it's the same thing. Now, there are other older designer games I enjoy quite a bit. Theme Park, I believe a Bullfrog game from back in the day. Really enjoyed that. And then whenever The Sims came out, the very first original one, man, I got into that game hard. And that's a game I'll probably have to cover at a later point. But yeah, that game was amazing. But when it comes to just the big city building game, I always want to come back to SimCity on the Super Nintendo. So thank you for listening to my rambling about SimCity. Again, it's easily my favorite city building game out there. I really wish someone could like come in and give it that like Nintendo polish for a newer version. and maybe start out small and then work your way up to something more modern. I feel like that would be the trick for me to get into it. Start with something really, really basic, and then I could like later on add on the more difficult stuff. Like let me build my city with only the zones and dropping a power plant. And then later on, I can like flip on, okay, I have to run electrical lines. Later on, I can flip on, oh, I gotta run water. And then later on, flip on again, oh, I gotta run sewage. Like that to me would be ideal. But let me know what you think if you want to post in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify, there's a poll that you can answer. Let me know what you think, because I would love to get more feedback. But that being said, we're going to go ahead and roll another music track before we roll with the outro. So that was the Metropolis music, which is as far as I could ever get in the game. Again, there's Megaopolis, and I could go on YouTube and listen to that and actually see how they're built, but I can never actually pull it off myself. You gotta be like almost perfect, which is insane, right? So anyways, hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Afterglow. If you want to talk a little bit, we do have a Discord, few people in there. We'd love to hear what you have to say about any episodes. Love any feedback, good or bad. Like I said, I will take any kind of feedback whatsoever. If you want to support the show, there is a Patreon. For $1 a month, you can get a shout out at the end of every episode from the point that you subscribe forward. If you like listening to my show, check out friends of the show like Retro Gaming Roundup, a very long-running podcast full of news, reviews, top 10 lists, interviews. You can check out also the Secret Levels podcast with Toby and Goobs. I'm in their Discord quite often, so maybe check out their Discord as well, because they've got a really big, thriving group over there. There's also the Lost and Gone podcast with Grim. It's a newer podcast. He likes going over, of course, Lost and Gone media. There's an episode coming soon about Sunman that will be hopefully releasing soon, because I'm really, really interested in hearing about unreleased Sunsoft games, because I love Sunsoft games. They always did awesome with their games, especially on the NES. Those NES games from Sunsoft were amazing. Our show logo and our artwork has been done by Mr. TobyVonDoom from Secret Levels, and the intro and outro music has been done by Grim from the Lost and Gone podcast. Thanks for listening to me ramble on another episode of Afterglow, and I hope you'll join us for the next one.